Hello and welcome back to the Jump Show. As always, I'm joined by Dan and Jake, but this is a slightly different video. This is going to be the start of our Cheltenham series. Every week on the run up to Cheltenham, we're going to sit down and discuss the festival and give you all of our selections. Now, this isn't a competition like last year, although there is going to be some friendly rivalry between us, but instead we're going to collectively be coming together to try and make as much profit as possible. Before we get started, if you guys have any questions at all surrounding the festival and want our opinions, then please drop them down below. We'll be sure to answer as many as possible. And if you wanted to join in yourself, giving us your bets, maybe you've had a good anti-post bet like 66s for Honeysuckle to win the champion hurdle that you placed 3 years ago and wanted to share that with us, then obviously please do. We're going to kick things off with a short review of a busy Christmas period and how it's affected the festival markets. And if you are up to date with this, which I'm sure some of you will be, I'm going to leave a timestamp in the description below. So just feel free to click along to the selections. Okay, Jake, how are you doing?
Yeah, it's not too bad. Joining on as a third wheel for your series this year, but let's see how we get on.
Looking for some better competition. And Dan, how was your?
I was waiting with the first reference of you winning some. You want a semblance of a competition, and like basically like your claim to fame forever. So just get it out of the way. I know there's gonna be a few references, so I'll let you get it out early.
It was the one and only time, I assure you. How was your New Year?
Oh mate, I had a lovely Christmas. I ate and drank far too much. I'm morbidly obese, borderline at this stage, but I'm buzzing for this. I mean, I've been looking at anti-post markets mainly for the handicaps ever since the prices came out, and yeah, I got roped back in. So it's that time for that cycle of hope and then inevitable disappointment. So let's bring it on.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in the last video you made, you said, I'm never making another Cheltenham video again.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. I just can't help myself. We get sucked in. That's why we're fans of this game. Like, we can say all that, but then in a few months later, it's all gone.
Okay, let's get going. We're going to start off with the main topic for this episode is going to be Willie Mullins dominating the Christmas period. Now, this is the 26th of December to the 1st of January. He had 21 winners from 77 runners. He held on to a lot of his big guns and unleashed some serious animals. I'll head over to you, Jake. I reckon we should start off with the Boxing Day winner, Sir Gerhard. I'm surprised there wasn't more of a shake-up in the market with him. I had him down as like the sort of the clear second favourite, but with all the hype around the Nicky Henderson horses, this may have sort of slightly gone under the radar. So what was your take on Sir Gerhard?
Yeah, so I'll just start by saying last year, Willie Mullins had 6 winners at the Cheltenham Festival, and the only one who didn't run between the 26th and the 1st was Sir Gerhard, and he was with Gordon Elliott at the time. So that tells you all you need to know about what Willie does and how he targets his horses throughout the season. But yeah, so Sir Gerhard, yeah, I kind of agree. He kind of did go under the radar a bit with all the hype around the 2 horses that we'd seen from Nicky Henderson and how impressive they were in their victories. So Gerhard's always been the one that I thought was the supreme, like, ever since like the last Cheltenham Festival finish, I thought he'd be the supreme horse. Then obviously there was that talk about Kilcruck coming in and being the supreme horse instead, which obviously put people off and, may have stopped people from backing it anti-post. But Sir Gerhard came out, he bolted up by 8 lengths on Boxing Day. Very good performance. He's 5-1 for the Supreme. I think that's fair enough. Obviously, he's we don't know how he matches up with the British yet. Obviously, we probably won't know until the day. But yeah, at this current stage, he'd probably be the one I would side with. Although he's still got a long way to go. You probably want to see him in a Grade 1 next.
Dan, have you got any more to add on Sir Gerhard?
No, it was a nice debut. Yeah, his jumping was slick. It was accurate. He reached a couple, but was still nimble enough to kind of get away with it. A lot to like, and I think the couple that he finished ahead of, I think Ash Tree Meadow is a decent horse, maybe a bit of a work in progress. Highland Charge is improving and will probably be of interest in handicaps next time out. But there was a lot to like, and if you look at the head of that market, you would say, based on previous antics in bumpers, so Gerhard's probably the more accomplished of the 3 so far that are at the head of the market. But I think the beauty of this year's race, unlike last year's where it was basically all about appreciate it, we've got some competition there. Like, we can have these debates, and it's going to be an interesting betting heat right up until the off. So right now, based on the prices, I'd be quite happy to just leave off until closer to the time once we know a bit more information, especially about Sir Gerhard, who you'd like to see obviously go and do it again, because experience tends to be crucial for the Supreme.
I may be getting way too far ahead of myself, but this has shades of Altior and Buvadere versus Min and that Supreme from a few years ago. The two Nicky Henderson horses and the Willie Mullins horse, and I'd love to see it play out that way. It does look like a much, as you say, a much stronger division than last year. We'll move on. Galopin Des Champs, again, a really, really impressive performance. I think the main question at the moment is if they're going to go over 3 miles or stick to 2 mile 4 furlongs. Obviously, he stayed at 2 miles a lot last year, went to 2 mile 4 and then up to 3. I could see them staying at this middle distance. What do you reckon, Dan?
I think it's more likely to go the 3 mile route is what I'd say. I mean, obviously they've got Bob Ollinger to contend with over 2.5, you'd reckon, although the 3 mile division isn't exactly a walk in the park with Brainman's Game and Signor and those types in there as well.
Fury Road.
Fury Road, of course. Yeah, you almost caused my brain to short circuit because I forgot he existed. But yeah, he finally got his day in the sun and probably never have another one. But good on the old boy. I'd say 3 miles, and it was a really impressive performance. As we say, he was a ruthless front running display, set a blinding gallop that nothing could really live with, and it looked almost impossible to pull up really, and just carted clear. A word on the third horse, Fleur, though, who was one of the two that really tried to keep up with him in the first instance. His second season novice did make a couple of mistakes on the way round, but in general, his jumping has slickened up considerably since last season. He kept on well where the other horse who was prominent folded completely late on, and Fleur did rally reasonably well when it looked like he might finish tailed off. I think he might be a Kim Muir candidate in time, like we'll see. He was a fast finishing third in the Martin Pipe last season. He's always looked like he wants 3 miles. His jumping will need to slicken up, but I think he's on my radar for my favourite race, the Kim Muir.
I was about to say that you're always plotting the whole season around trying to find the Kim Muir winner. It's incredible. I've never known someone take such a liking to such an awful race. And Jake, I'm sure you share the opinion of almost everyone that Galopin Des Champs was just seriously impressive.
Yeah, and as you said, he won over 2 mile 5 furlong that day. Didn't lack speed at all. So they do have the option. I think it will depend on what Willie's got. He did have another horse that came out and run over a similar trip called Jungle Boogie, and he was equally as impressive, winning by like 14 lengths, but against some nicer types like Deal Kerr, who hasn't really ever shone over fences, but he's still a decent horse. So yeah, I think he'll probably end up going to the Festival Novices Chase, let's be honest, but it would be interesting to see him in the 2.5 race, and I think he could easily win it if he did turn up there. Well, not easily, obviously Bob Ollinger's there, but he'd have a great chance either way. But yeah, I think it would depend on what Willie's got, but he's got a dab hand in pretty much every division, as we'll talk about in a second.
So it would be nice to have some competition for Bob Ollinger, because I think he's something stupid like 13-8, 7-4 for that race already. So it would, as I say, with him and maybe even Brave Man's Game as well, it could be a really strong race come March. We'll push on to Classical Dream. He sort of set himself as a clear favourite. We made the jump show and I'd said that I was really fancying Flooring Porter and how that he could come in. The race was sort of marred by the fact that Classical Dream stole a few lengths at the start going before the flag fall. I think in a lot of races they would have pulled that back, but Classical Dream did win, stayed on really strongly to the line, has incredible back form. There's a lot to like about him going into this. What would you make of the race, Jake?
Yeah, I thought that the Stayers Hurdle division was so stale before this performance. All of them are horses that are coming back from years gone by, and you've got your Paisley Parks and stuff, and it's just really uninspiring stuff. And I'm not a big fan of Champ, as we know, so that wasn't he wasn't a horse that came into the picture for me either. But yeah, Classical Dream, that performance, with Punches Down last season, you thought that he would be the Stayers Hurdle type. He missed the Hatton's Grace. You're kind of worrying a little bit there. Is he going to stay fit? But obviously he has come back, won the Christmas Hurdle. I'm not they made all the running with him this time. Obviously at Punches Down, they held him up and he came through on the absolute bridle and just went away easily. I think that might suit him a bit more. I'm not sure if they'll try and lead with him in the Stayers Hurdle, but even if they did, I think he's got a great chance. 11-4 is short enough, but he actually gave me a bit of excitement for the race. So not one to back right now, but one to keep an eye on, and I'll probably be backing him on the day or the week before type thing, depending on price.
I was going to say, I tweeted straight away afterwards. What looked like such a poor division at the start of the season has got a bit of life in it. And I know you weren't a fan of Champ, but he is going to play a hand in the race. You also have Time Hill as well, who did run very well at Ascot. I think it's set up to be I think it's actually set up to be one of the best renewals in recent years. Dan, do you think Flooring Porter has what it takes to reverse that form of Classical Dream?
It's tough, really. I mean, I think there could be arguments all day about the start and whether that impacted the result. Chances are we'll never know. What we do know is that they set a really good gallop between them throughout, and they finished clear of the rest. So it marks them two probably as the standouts in my mind at this stage. Flooring Porter obviously will be the defending champion come March. And to be fair, I thought he looked a more calm, relaxed sort than he normally has done. Maybe it's because he had more of a mental case in front of him, and he was almost forced to rein that his kind of erratic side in slightly, but he seemed a bit more competent. I thought he might throw the toys out of the pram when he couldn't get to the front, but he actually seemed fairly straightforward and put in a perfectly respectable performance. And I think he's still reasonable, maybe an each way price at this stage. I don't know what it's going to end up being close to the time. It's a ever evolving race, it seems, like if things keep coming out of the woodwork. But I think he can get closer. I think Classical Dream he's hard to trust based on his record of getting to the track, firstly. I couldn't be touching him at this stage on a short price, really. And I think the contrasting tactics we've seen from him the last twice do show that he is a very headstrong character. Like, how's he going to cope 3 miles at Cheltenham with a massive crowd? Like, is that a slight concern? I mean, he's been there and done it in the Supreme already. He made all that day, but that's 2 miles. It could be a bit of a different test for him. I don't know. It's a fascinating race. It's one I'm looking forward to be able to discuss more as we get closer to the race itself, and hopefully most of the protagonists actually make it there.
Okay, we'll move on to the last of the horses we're going to really talk about from the Willie Mullins yard. We've bundled these two in together, and we'll call it just the Arkle horses. That's Ferny Hollow and Blue Lord. I was really impressed with Ferny Hollow, obviously giving a lot of weight to Riviere de Tal. The gallop they went was really strong. His jumping was solid. I just think he looks a proper horse, and he looks like the Arkle winner to me. And unfortunately, I think Blue Lord is going to have to pay second fiddle like he did to Appreciate It, or would have done to Appreciate It last year in the Supreme. Dan, anything out of the ordinary on these two?
Well, I think Ferny Hollow might be something out of the ordinary. I mean, it was a very impressive performance, as you say, to give £13 to Riviere de Tal, who's kind of carried all before her this season just based on the allowances she's getting. And her run style is tailor-made for like 2 mile novice chases around that time of the year. She can just bowl along in front. She's got a lot of talent, that mare. And Ferny Hollow took the race to her, which not many could probably be able to do. Like, instead of, you pretty much banked on Riviere de Tal getting to the front and Ferny trying to be played a bit late, but that wasn't the case. And credit to Riviere de Tal as well, to be fair, because I thought she would chuck the towel in when she never really got her way, but she kept on really nicely that day. And it was a bit of a test of stamina, especially with the fences coming out. The field was strung out a long way from home. Nothing really got close to them. So it was a good performance from both. Obviously, Riviere de Tal is going to find life harder from here on out as the age allowance starts to dwindle, and she'll only be getting £7 come March. So whether she's up to this kind of standard and whether they might look for a different route with her, I don't know. But Ferny Hollow, very impressive. Most likely Arkle winner, obviously by a mile. The market will tell you that. You don't need me to say it, but very impressive horse, very impressive performance. Yeah, looks probably, hopefully, a very top class chaser of the future.
Hopefully, he can stay sound as well. Obviously, has had some difficulties off the track. Jake, any comment on Blue Lord? I think we all at this point know Ferny Hollow is probably a cut above the rest. Have you got any notes on Blue Lord at all?
Yeah, so as I said with Ferny Hollow, I think he is obviously the most likely favourite. I've been on him for a while, not to toot my own trumpet or anything, but Blue Lord did give me a bit of a fright.
Lovely stuff.
But Blue Lord did give me a bit of a fright when I saw him, bolt up by 20 lengths on Sunday. I think he's a great horse. I put him up for the Supreme last year because I thought he'd have a decent each way chance. Obviously fell at the last. I think he'll make amends this year and get round. Obviously, I think he jumps fences really nicely. But I don't think he's probably quite good enough to beat Ferny Hollow. I think he might give him a decent race, to be honest. He'll have another couple of races between now and then. Ferny Hollow probably will only have one race, I'd imagine, between now and the festival. Probably go to the Dublin Racing Festival, I'd imagine, and win that, hopefully. But yeah, I think Blue Lord did put in a really nice performance, and he is obviously a really nice horse.
I was reading that Blue Lord's target is the Irish Arkle, so it'd be very interesting if they face off before Cheltenham, or maybe Fernie Hollow might have another plan between now and then. Okay, we're going to move on to the selections. I'll go first just to get mine out of the way because it's nice and quick and easy before these two chuck a script at you all. So my selection,
so well.
My selection is going to be coming from the Martin Pipe. I'm going to keep it really simple with Langer Dan. He's currently 12-1 best price, but is a general 10-1. I'll just go win only, 1 point win. The angle's an obvious one. You sort of turned a corner last year in March following a wind up. He went on, bolted up in that Imperial Cup, got a £5 rise, looks teed up for the Martin Pipe, but bumped into Galopin Deschamps, who we've already spoken about. He went on to win a Grade 1 by 12 lengths. You take him out the race and Langer Dan would have won by 9 lengths. Now he's gone up £5 for that effort. He's most probably, or should improve from 5 to 6 as most horses do. And we know that Scout is fantastic at targeting these handicaps. He was always set to miss the first half of the season, so it's not really a concern for me. I imagine they might go back for that Imperial Cup because they normally chuck a bonus on. I think it's like a 50,000 bonus if you can win that and the race at Cheltenham. So they might do that. Failing that, he looks really well handicapped off 140, so they may even go straight there. I think Langer Dan, most probably one of the better handicap bets for me right now. I'll pass it on to Dan. I'm sure you'll have something to say on mine, and you can also give your selection as well.
Not too much to say on Langer Dan. I think everyone kind of knows the story with him, really. Obviously, haven't heard much since. Obviously, it would seem obvious given the way that yard operate that the Martin Pipe would be the plan, but we'll see. Yep, he's got a good chance. It's just what Irish plot job's going to beat him is really the question you have to ask yourself. You know there's going to be something. That race is full of them all the time. I think the amount of Irish novices that win the Martin Pipe and turn out to be Grade 1 horses is ridiculous. Galopin Deschamps being the most recent example. So he should be there if he makes it, and we'll see what Irish horse we're talking about for next year's Festival Novice Chase after the last, I guess, because that tends to be the way. And in the spirit of Skelton trained handicappers, that's where I'm going to begin as well. I had this all written up like lovely and neat. It was 16-1, widely available a few days ago, and then a few prominent tipsters decided to put him up a couple of days ago. So he's trimmed into best price 14-1 now. I still think that is reasonable, and that's West Cork in the County Hurdle. Obviously won the Great Wood off 134 following a mammoth absence. By all accounts, Harry came up with a plan for that race a few weeks before, and what a plan it was in the end. And to be fair, we should really pay more attention to when the Skeltons say they're targeting a race, like it's a 2-mile handicap round Cheltenham. He went off 11-1 that day. Quite bafflingly. I know the absence was there, but we know what this yard is like. And he actually had decent back form in the book going into that race. He was second to Jatalui on Hurdle's debut, was rated 148 a bit later. Second to Espoir de Rome, who had a Hometown Boy, who's rated 146, and Kaluki was rated 141 behind him before. He battered Mr. Coffee. So the form was there, and he was off 134. So in hindsight, which is a wonderful thing, we should have paid more attention, although I'm sure some definitely backed him. A lot to like about the performance that day. He did take a bit of a pull at the start. He was a bit novice and a bit airy at his early hurdles, just showing his kind of relative freshness, I suppose. Harry dropped his whip late on, and he hit the front a mile from home in vintage Harry Skelton fashion, some would say. But he still ground it out to a fast-finishing Adagio, who I haven't seen since, but many are keen on his chances, even as like a dark horse, maybe something like the Champion Hurdle, if nothing else can really challenge. He might run onto a place, and he's a very admirable sort from his juvenile days. The form of that Great Wood's pretty decent. The Tritonic was 5th. He won next time out. Glory and Fortune finished 2nd to Epatante in the Christmas Hurdle. Marie's Rock, who was 7th, won next time out. Botox Has, who was 8th, has gone close in his next 2 starts. So that's form is working out okay. It seems like a decent renewal of the Great Wood. And I thought he shaped fine at Ascot. Like, there was a lot to like about it on his second start after a long break. There's always these concerns about him bouncing. He travelled into it really well. He was still banged there and just tired late on. And it was reported that he had actually quite a severe overreach after that race, which is a more than valid excuse for why he didn't quite see out his effort like he did at Cheltenham. So absolutely happy with that. He's been left unchanged on a mark of 141. And more importantly, for a handicap at this time of the year, the Skeltons have said the County Hurdle is the plan, and he has a very similar profile to the likes of which the yard has won it with before. Obviously, they've won 3 of the last 6 renewals. You had Superb Story, Mahayed and Chitabello. All 3 of those hadn't run since at least the end of the year. So it's going to be a similar story for West Cork. They think he's almost a graded horse. He's be running off 1-4-1 here. He handles Cheltenham. He's got plenty of decent back form. He's going to be single figures on the day if he gets there. And obviously the only barrier to that stage should be his soundness. And he has had his issues. That is probably the only one major concern at this stage. But I think there's still room in that mark to improve. He's going there by all accounts. I think he's got a great chance. Obviously, there are going to be emerging horses in that market, but for now, I think he's a very solid option.
A really nice scout and double from me and Dan. Isn't it good to team up on a selection every now and then? Hey,
no, it feels a bit dirty, really.
Jake, have you followed in with the Skelton theme, or have you got somebody else in mind?
It's just a Skelton fan podcast. I love it.
Yeah, I would have done well to find another one. Yeah. No, the question is down though. Which Irish horse is going to go and beat him?
Yeah, no, good question. Well, it's going to be probably a Willie Mullins one because they do tend to share it, unless like some Peter Fahey trained rag comes out of nowhere at 50-1. But we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I'm keeping up the handicap theme anyway. I've gone for the Boodles juvenile handicap hurdle, which might seem like a bit of a strange pick at this time of year, but I think one has emerged that actually has a really good profile for the race. And is a decent price. So let's just go on with it. So I've gone for Gordon Elliott's Britzka. Now, this is a 4-year-old, obviously, with the same owners as Duffel-Coat, who went and won that Grade 2 juvenile hurdle last year at Cheltenham. So obviously the owners have decent juveniles before. He's come off the flat. He was only rated 66 in the end, having dropped down quite a few pounds, but he's got some decent form. The last start was especially good. He was only 6 lengths behind Luna Power, who obviously has gone on to do some good things over hurdles, finishing second in a Grade 3 and a Grade 2. So that was a decent handicap at Leopardstown over 1 mile 4 furlongs. He then went and won his maiden hurdle at the beginning of December. So he went to Fairy House. He jumped pretty averagely. There's a lot of room for improvement in his jumping, but you could see the talent he has because he just travelled into the race really nicely and then went away at the line as well. He won that by 6 lengths. Good performance. And then his next seen in the Grade 2 juvenile hurdle at Leopardstown over Christmas. So obviously he was up against it that day, up against Phil Dorr, who's obviously the Triumph favourite. Luna Power was also in there. But again, he ran quite well. He got into the race quite nicely. Again, he was jumping pretty averagely. He can get them right and he can get them wrong, basically. Sometimes probably more often wrong at this minute. But I think it's a similar type to Aramax. Aramax was awful at jumping at the beginning. He just warmed up as he went along and got a lot better. But yeah, so he was actually really tenderly ridden in that Leopardstown race. Like Jack Kennedy didn't really go for him until it looked like he might be passed for third. But once Jack Kennedy went into him, he went on and he kept the 3rd place and he closed at the line actually to finish only 2.5 lengths behind Luna Power this time. So he's closed the gap already for going over hurdles. Not too far behind the Triumph favourite as well. But interestingly, that race has also produced the last 2 winners of the Fred Winter or the Boodles. So Jeff Kidder ran it last year and he was only last. Aramax ran it the year before and he fell. But yeah, so he's got a decent profile. He's entered up on Sunday at Fairy House in a 4-year-old hurdle. And this is the race that Gordon Elliott likes to target. So last year he won with Tiopo. In 2020, Aramax ran in it and finished, I think, 3rd. In 2019, he won it with Shurin. And in 2018, he won it with Machuca, where Vanera Charm, who went on to win the Boodles, was 2nd. So he's got a really nice profile for the race. Gordon's already got Phil Dorr for the Triumph, so I don't think the Triumph is ever going to come into the equation here. It's just whether he can get a decent mark for the Boodles. And if he does, I think as long as his jumping improves as he goes along, like Aramax did a couple of years ago, then I think he's got a great chance. You can get 20-1 in 5 places. I think that's worth a point each way at this stage.
Fantastic. There we go. And I think that
nice.
Unless Dan has anything to comment on that, I think that wraps up our first Cheltenham show.
Oh, I've got another one actually. But don't cut me off before I put my Ultima tip out. How dare you?
I forgot. Yeah, so
how dare you?
Dan
you spent about 5 minutes before we started guessing what it would be. It's like, how could you forget?
Well, I apologise.
But to be fair, on Britzka though, that's a decent shout. I think actually after he won the first time, they said he might be a Fred Winter type. So it seems a long-term plan. I mean, I don't know. Do you think he'll run? on Sunday. It's only, what, 2 weeks after he just ran?
Yeah,
Maybe the
I don't know.
concern.
They've got Iberic de Soy in there as well, so it'll be one of the two. I'd imagine that they'll run, but I wouldn't be concerned if he didn't, because there's also that race at Nace that always produces the Fred Winter types like Band of Outlaws, and I think Aramex won that as well. So yeah, I mean, if he doesn't run, it's not the end of the world. But
no, he's got plenty of time to get another run in, doesn't he? Really, he can go to Dublin Race Festival as well. Should be fine. Yeah, nice one. Okay, are you going to interrupt me again, Willo? Or am
no, Dan, you can give us your second selection, mate. Yeah.
Thank you, mate. Very kind of you. So it's a great handicap theme we've got going here, and I love it. I mean, it's completely wrong almost, but I love it because it just feels so right. And this is one I've had to get priced up myself in a couple of places, because that's just kind of the bloke I am. And the last time I did that, it was Cocoa Beach, and we all know how that one went. So yeah, less I talk about that, the better. It still scars me to this day. But we are going to day one, the first handicap of the week, the Ultima, which is generally a race you can kind of do all right in. It's fairly well trend set at this stage. Like, you generally look for British-based novices or lightly race chasers. So that's kind of what I've done. I've gone with Fantastikas, who can back at 33 to 1, which I think, albeit we're a bit far off, it's a decent enough price, and it's enough to tempt me in anyway. So going into Cheltenham on New Year's Day, I had 3 Ultimate candidates in mind. Honest Vic was one of them, and he jumped poorly. I think there were excuses. He didn't have his usual visor on, first time in a big handicap. I think I can forgive him if he runs better next time, and he'd still be of interest here. Come On Teddy was the other one. He finished 5th in the Dipper. That was just his second start of the fences. He has some good Cheltenham form to his name over hurdles. He ran okay, needs another run first. He's still a live contender, but he finished behind Fantastikas in that race. And I thought in third, he ran an absolute stormer over a trip that was definitely short of his best. He was only 2 lengths behind the Glancing Queen, who Alan King reportedly said that was a career best run. And to be fair, it was a very solid effort. If you take the winner out, it's a great run. And considering the distance that was back to the 4th and 5th, obviously Lon Press was the ready winner that day. He's now second favourite pretty much for the Marsh at this stage, and he looks a real class act. So third to them is absolutely no disgrace whatsoever. Before that, he bolted up on his chase debut in a handicap of 128. The second horse, Pemberley, won next time out and then finished second the other day in the Sussex National. So that form is working out quite well. He split 3 under through 5 and Emma Tom in a grey to a Doncaster the time after that on just his second chase start. It was a decent run. Realistically, he had quite a lot of ground to make up based on hurdles form with those two, and the ratings kind of bore that out, but he still finished ahead of Emma Tom, which is a decent effort. 3 under through 5. It's kind of a horse some people have very varying opinions on, but ultimately he's a talented chaser, and he's probably a decent 4-miler candidate at this stage. And I think his Cheltenham run in the Dipper is another step in the right direction. I think he's slowly building, for all that the conditions definitely weren't in his favour last time out. And I like the fact that he's now proven he acts around Cheltenham, which tends to be a big factor in Ultima success. Although it was a new course, and obviously the Ultimas were on the old course, it's that I'll accept that, but it's still reasonable Cheltenham form. As I said, British trained novices tend to do very well in this race. He's progressive, and he's been noted as a staying chaser to follow since the start of the season. I think Sam Twiston-Davis did an article on one of the racing websites, and he named him as one of his top horses to follow, specifically out of the Nigel Twiston-Davis yard, as a young staying handicap chaser of the future. And I think it's also the kind of horse that Nigel does extremely well with. And we know Imperial Racing Club as well, who own him, love a Cheltenham handicap. You only have to go back to Imperial Aura recently, that Imperial Alcazar gambled on quite heavily for the Potemps as well. So they do like to target the bigger meetings when they can. He's currently off a mark of 140, which I think is completely workable. The obviously negatives at this stage is that it's early January and he's only just raced, obviously on New Year's Day. He could go somewhere else in the meantime. I'd like it if they kept him fresh, because I think he's on a great mark and they don't need to overexpose him at this time. And I think he's an absolute ideal type for an Ultima, especially with the way he's a sound jumper and he races prominently, which you need to do in that race. He has a lot going for him. His mark is very workable. So if he gets there, I can see it being quite a prominent type in the market based on that lightly raced profile. But we'll see. It's a long way off yet, but I'd be optimistic with his chances if he got there. And at 33 to 1, it's something I'm willing to take a chance on at this stage.
And I don't know if you said it. I do apologize if I missed it. You said you got it priced up. Who did you get it priced up with?
Bet365.
Bet365. Okay,
It's
just
25s on William Hill as well.
Okay, fantastic. And you obviously did quite well in this race last year as well. You managed to pick out who was moving in the markets correctly. So fingers crossed we have another one that's going to shorten drastically for us.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, that's the first Cheltenham video from the Jump Show completed. We'll hopefully be back next week. Earlier on, I think the plan will be to review some races, answer some questions, and then follow on with more selections. And hopefully we can create a nice profitable book for you guys. Okay, anyone else have anything to say at all?
No, it's been fun. I look forward to next week and even more absolute mad handicap picks. Can we just go all handicaps?
No.
See how long we can drag that. Way to kill my vibe.
All right, we'll see you all next week.
See ya.